Okay, as part of my marathon, oh, they're good. That's one of my favorites. Look at that art, huh? Darth Vader. As my marathon securities token thing, I'm going to go and do the Q&A. I had prepped with this earlier today. Hold on here. Let me get this screen straight. Uh, looks like the video is just a little bit off, but that's fine. Um, so I am going to go through this Q&A of questions that came in today, and I figure um, I'll just cover a lot of stuff as quickly as possible, rather than try to make this fancy. The smart way to do this, to if I wanted a bunch of traffic, would be to do a simple video on each one of these, but I don't have time for that. I got stuff to do. So let's go. Bruce would like to know more about proof of promise. I am sorry, LM, I do not know about proof of promise. Did not have time to look it up. If I have a chance, I could try. Hey Zim, how's it going? I know it's outside your talk from Baltic Honey Badger. Would like to know about your ways small business could do an offering with an exemption. Okay, cool. I forget which video it was. It was the one on securities. If you Google SEC exemption chart, it's really cool because it'll tell each kind of exemption. There's a neat one in there that is statewide that you can do if you do it within your state. If you're in a state like I am in New Hampshire, you could do it within your state and be exempt and subject to a lot of things. There's some cool ones. There's a lot of ones everybody knows about the the way that it works with accredited investors and everything. But Google that. It's in one of the videos here. If you have trouble following, let me know. I'll find it. Dimitri, how does the size of network be larger than the size of the asset issued by? Okay, that's a great question. What Dimitri is referring to is if you issue an asset on a chain, suppose it's a small chain, and worth with a market value of 30, 40, 50 million, and there's an asset on it that's worth a billion, then that changes the attack vector. How much does it need? I don't know. It really depends on what your security risk is, and what somebody is, what it's worth it, what the policies are. If there's a policy that it would never be rolled back, if you say you need 2 weeks worth of confirms to do anything. There's a lot of different ways to avoid that. And now there's some interesting technologies where chains are tied to other chains to add more strength. Nicholas, add process of how exemption from registration can evolve into tradable securities. Okay, great. So there's a lot of people think that securities just can't trade once they're offered under exemption. That depends on the exemption. A lot of them you can trade, and particularly if you do certain things and you can register. And I'd see a world where you can have a whole bunch of things trade between people, and that would be really cool. The process, it depends on how it's offered, and there's different ways to do that you can look up, but it absolutely can be done. People say, okay, you have to be accredited by a security. No, you do not. You do not have to be accredited. You don't have to be accredited by Apple. You have to be accredited to be offered certain securities in certain ways, but under Reg D and things like that. That's slightly different. If you rewind if you want, but that's basically how it works. Read articles from Jesus Rodriguez. Don't know. Why do you need a token? Why not open database controlled by a central entity? Okay, I hope I covered that in most of this. Why not a database? Well, you have a database now. The central entity controls it, and there's some drawbacks with that. You have to trust a party. It takes there's times and so on. I'm on a roll. I like this topic. I just figured I'd get a bunch of content out there. Let's roll. Final list required features for blockchain to be the most useful for securities. Okay, I haven't thought about that. That's a good idea. Certainly, security is way up there. This is money. Now, interestingly, and hear me out before you freak out, especially if you're like a cash focused, security focused person. The security is not as important as it is for something like Bitcoin. There's chains where the chain could conceivably fail. It doesn't mean the company fails. Big embarrassment. It'd be like the equivalent of the transfer agent or the custodian breaking. Maybe the money gets frozen for 6 weeks. Embarrassment. Maybe the value goes down. But the buildings of the company don't fall apart just because they issued goofy token. So we should look at that. I guess you could work back, reverse engineer Spacesuit X or something, figure out some ways. Certainly security of the chain. There's a lot of factors, and it's going to be a balance on how you do it. Content architects for securities trading, compliance, yeah, there's a lot of amazing things. Amazing things on it. Oh yes, I know this post, of course. Yeah, this is a great post. Take a look at it. There's a lot of stuff about securities tokens on there. Take a look at these are on my feed here on Twitter. How will securities look in 3, 5, 10 years? I think it's going to be a big deal. I think there is certainly a chance, a non-zero chance, that the whole mess of the world is going to be tokenized. And once it happens, it could happen fast. You could end up with thousands and thousands of securities, real ones jumping on it, lots of trade, crypto go crazy. Could be a very, very interesting thing. It is truly a superior model. It is 10 times better than the existing system. I think it could happen. Amazing, amazing stuff. Could also crash to nothing. We could all be fools. It might go to zero. I'm putting some skin in the game and betting the former, not the latter. Who would be the issuer of tokenized stock? Anybody. Anybody who wants to issue anything from a hot dog stand to Apple Computer. Anybody who wants to raise capital, get it out there, put it in the thing. Each company will have to learn the tech. Well, it should be easy. They should just be able to rely on their whoever. And eventually, I think that'll be commoditized. It'll be about like getting a website out there. It shouldn't be hard. You could do it internally, have some lawyers, couples, things like that. Not today, but at some point, I think it'll be pretty easy. Oh, great. Yes, sure. I'd love to have anything I do translated to Spanish. Pretty much anything I do is free and open source, unless otherwise, when in doubt, go ahead and ask me on it. But I'm usually pretty happy to share and give away my stuff. If I write a novel about spies or something, maybe I might want a copyright. But other than that, let's do it. I'm going to do that too. I think I can make a cool spy novel. I've done some interesting things that would be relevant to that, and of course I'll throw crypto in there. What attributes of ideal platform? I think we just covered that below. How do you enforce traditional rules for transactions accredited investors? So that could be done on a smart contract level, or it could be done by the token itself. It again comes back a lot to the issuers, the platform, how they work, how they interact with smart contracts, second layer, things like that. You can add these capabilities to other things. Early adopting issuers of traditional assets. The early adopters, unfortunately, are going to be a lot of scammers. There's already a lot of junky companies, people who couldn't raise money elsewhere. I'm really looking forward to the much higher quality issues. And I feel already worried that I'm cheerleading tokenized securities, which I very strongly believe in, but I also know that there's going to be a lot of junk and a lot of scams that come out of this, unfortunately. So I'd like to push, and I would urge anybody out there interested in this to push for really high quality offerings. Try and get things that are really not junky businesses, not ones with historical high rates of failure, but good solid businesses. Even if they're much more boring and low profit, it will help the ecosystem better. Please do history, securities, and ledgers. I did. This was some of these posts were before I did the video. I think we covered most of that. I did not cover a big comparison of the platforms. Omni Counterparty. There's a whole bunch more colored coins: Ethereum, EOS, ADA, Ravencoin, all of these others. That would be a whole. I would have to prepare for that video. I'm not familiar with all of these platforms. Pretty much any good chain. There's somebody maybe talking about this. There's certainly a lot of efforts. Monero's working on it. I'm sure Litecoin people, Bitcoin Cash, many others. How does scaling of issues expect vibrant trading for tokens built on ERC, EOS, Poly? Scaling it in Ravencoin. Ravencoin is in good shape, and part of the design of Ravencoin was to use the scaling of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin can use the Lightning Network and SegWit, and so can Ravencoin. Those can just be merged in. ERC20 rely and Poly rely on Ethereum, which has some scaling issues, which have been talked about. There's a lot of smart people working on that. EOS does not have the scaling issues. They've traded off with some, what some would say different centralization or style trades off. I happen to like all these projects, and I don't tend to criticize them. A lot of people say, well, EOS is not Bitcoin. Well, it's not claiming to be Bitcoin. It's a different kind of thing. Will it work? I don't know. I don't know. Anything can fail in this space. But I certainly wish them well, and I believe I own some, and I own some of the parent company, and or the parent company that kind of helps, put this stuff out. So what else here we have? Cover custody. Yeah, so we talked a lot about custody. I'll have to go through some of these. Hello, Mr. Hoddle, ICO. Secure way to cover custody. Yeah, that's going to be a big issue. It'll be interesting. The rise of companies like Zappo and things like that. Hoddle is a good person to follow. Bitcoin maximalist. Accredited investor rules. They're the combination of anti-money laundering and just sort of government overreach. They I don't, in my opinion, don't help in a lot of ways. Ragnar knows a lot about real estate. Good to follow comparison of current technologies. Yes, I think somebody asked about that below. Why isn't Ravencoin a scam? It depends on your definition of a scam. Some people think everything's a scam, anything not Bitcoin is a scam. I think it would be a pretty low bar with a project like that because they didn't ask for any money. Nobody asked for any money. I certainly didn't ask for any money or sell it in any way. I don't know anybody who did. I suppose there might be somebody, but I haven't seen any evidence that there was anything scammy about it. With any open source project, somebody may promise something that doesn't work. So you could judge that on each case. There's people going around saying Ravencoin is Bitcoin 3.0. That I don't agree with. Maybe they're right and I'm wrong. Maybe they're more bullish on Ravencoin than I am. I don't know. It's whatever people say is what they say. So it really depends. I think it's certainly a very low bar project like that does not offer. That did not raise any money, ICOs, and there's not necessarily an issue with raising money. It's not like it makes it more pure, or it makes it work. I think that's scammy. A lot of people figure if something isn't going to work or they believe is unlikely to work, that it's a scam. But nothing in crypto is likely to work. Most things statistically are likely to fail. Except, I don't know, maybe Bitcoin would be a big judgment call. I certainly hope, but it would be not good. Logic to be arrogant enough to say Bitcoin has a 100% chance of succeeding or crypto has an X% chance. If you're going into those real high numbers, that becomes you want to be careful about arrogance and that kind of thing. So who knows? Will it work? I don't know. Anything is very, very risky. Certainly with any coin. Like Ravencoin or Bitcoin or anything, be very, very cautious, and Raven even more so because it's small and very speculative. This is all an experimental process, but it's a very interesting process, and some of these things may work or work in different ways than we think. And what I would urge people to do instead of investing is to participate, go to conferences, learn, contribute, write papers, use tools, contribute to open source, run nodes, review things, talk about it. Try and do testnet things, assets, stuff like that. Hopefully this has been useful. We covered the past, present, and future of securities tokens. We covered a lot of what these things are, how they work, how the current ledgers work. We covered a bunch of stuff, and hopefully it's been useful. And there's some Q&A, so please keep in touch. Follow me on social media if you have any questions, and maybe we'll do some more of these. Thanks a lot.